Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Executive Table Talk sponsored by Work It Daily. My name is JT O'Donnell. I'm the founder and CEO of Work It Daily. And today's topic is how to conduct a productive meeting. So where did this idea come from? Well, I've been seeing a lot of stuff in the news where people are saying how much time they're wasting in meetings and how much they would rather be doing other things. In fact, I've seen a lot of TikToks making fun of meetings. And so I thought I would put it to our team of experts here at Work It Daily, what they do to make meetings more productive. And I've got three fantastic guests today. So let me get them right up onto the stage. Welcome, Catherine Marshburn, Anna Smith, and Michael Willis. So good to have you all here. So I'm going to kick it off with Catherine. I want to talk about what you do for productive meetings. Let me just set it up for people. If you don't know, please go find and follow all three of these executives. They're dropping incredible knowledge bombs and insights every day here on LinkedIn. Catherine has this unbelievable background in the music industry. And all I think about when I think about that is that your meetings must be very interesting. So I'm curious to hear how you keep people on track with this, Catherine.
It's funny. Thank you so much, JT. I love this topic. I love it because on a bigger kind of higher level view, I like looking and seeing how the strategies work out for different executives and how they manage their time efficiently. And meetings is just one great way where you can see their style. But that effectiveness and time management is so interesting to me because most executives do have a strategy that they're trying to follow to make decisions based on risk, driving revenue, and reducing risk really at the end of the day. And I have a story from when I was managing an artist in Florida. She was on tour and we were heading to a music conference in between two tour dates. And the director of the music conference called me and said, hey, I know you don't know this. We don't tell many of the participants, but we have a dinner, a label meeting dinner with 7 record labels the night before the music conference. And there's usually entertainment. And the act canceled that was going to be entertaining the executives at the dinner. And would your artist like to come perform? And of course, I said, yes, because I'm known in the industry to taking a lot of risks. Sometimes they're crazy and they don't work. Sometimes they fail. And sometimes every once in a while, like Flow Riders A&R said to me, every once in a while, Catherine, one of them works and it's amazing. Well, this was one of those time moments where it was going to take me 10 to 15 hours to pull this person off stage after a show, jump in the car, drive down to Fort Lauderdale, perform an acoustic set, get back in the car and drive back to the next tour date. It was a really big time suck for me. So I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just committed to that. But I did. The artist was kind of kicking and screaming the whole time. But guess what happened? She ended up getting a record deal from that time management strategy, that risk that I took. She ended up getting a deal. And within 4 months, she was performing at Wembley Stadium in London with Flow Rider. Like, I will never forget that risk. So when I look at time management and I kind of narrow it down to our topic today, I think about making decisions that are efficient, but keeping your mind open to opportunities. Like, don't lock yourself into being so time efficient that you don't see the bigger picture sometimes. For example, like today, I'm noticing in society on a lot of our social media platforms and at companies in general, we're spending a lot of effort and eyeballs on time efficiency. Some companies are now going from 5-day workdays to 4 days. We're watching YouTube reporting that watch times with certain demographics have now gone down to very limited attention spans. And then, of course, TikTok has made an entire living off of a shortened attention span, as we all know. So if you kind of think about those items as we're approaching going into this topic about meetings, what are some hacks and things that might help keep people's attention during the meetings, might be effective, and just keep it working for you, where you have a strategy where you can be at your maximum time effectiveness? So I can't take credit for my 3 hacks. I learned them at Spotify from an amazing manager that I work for. But I do love them and I want to share them with you. Before any meeting that's coming up, our biweekly meeting that houses about 8 different teams at Spotify, we send out an agenda the day before. And I prefer that the final agenda usually goes out noon the day before the meeting. We send the agenda out, ask for feedback from everyone that's going to be in the meeting. And it's kind of a perception is reality thing too. I want everybody on those teams to know that their voice matters and that they have input. And it's real. We want to hear what you want to say. We'd like to assign topics. So we send the agenda out for feedback and comments the day before. We send a finalized agenda, preferably by like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, not the night before the meeting, because nobody opens their email and looks at the agenda and then they get to the meeting and they're frazzled. So the earlier you can start kind of strategizing to get input, from my experience, has been getting that agenda out early and getting feedback. The second hack is the day of the meeting. I really put a lot of value and weight on the host being on time, if not early, whoever is hosting that meeting, particularly on Zoom. That just kind of sets the tone. If you get in there early as the host, what's a big priority for me and my management style, which I really like to have a very kind, caring, and considerate presence in my meetings and in work in general. I really focus on welcoming anyone that's new to the meeting, any guests, any other departments that are in attendance. I want that vibe to start off in a meeting as super cool and chill, maybe give it 5 minutes before everybody enters in, and create this really cool atmosphere. I might even be playing music, typically we are, and just kind of create an energy that starts the meeting. My third hack is, and then I'll jump off as I'm talking a lot, but my third hack is I really like to use Google Docs. And in particular, I like to take the meeting minutes from all of the previous meetings and line them all up on one document. So for example, our meeting minutes from last month are on the bottom, and then the next 2 weeks comes next, and it kind of goes up the ladder to today's meeting agenda and minutes. This way, when we're talking about topics like, let's say we were working with Doja Cat's release and we had split rights due in 2 different countries, and we had to really go in and fix the distribution of rights, you can see who was assigned to it, like 4 meetings ago. And you could kindly do a follow-up the next, meeting. And then you can see, oh yeah, they did reach out to Universal Music Group. And yeah, someone is working on clearing it. And oh, today, by the way, it's cleared. Like we've got the rights all situated. We can launch the project. So I really like how Google Docs houses that for me and everyone can have access to it. My final hack to keep everyone alert in the meeting is I really like to do this. I don't know what you guys think of this, but I like to have the Google Doc up on the screen. I like to actually be live in the doc while we're in the meeting. And that keeps everyone alert because they're watching the cursor, they're watching the notes that I'm typing in. Sometimes I'll assign a name to it if that person's talking, and everyone is really paying attention. And of course, after the meeting, do a little roundup with follow-ups and anyone's input comes back on that email. And then we're ready for, the biweekly meeting for the next couple of weeks. So those are my hacks.
I love it. Okay. First of all, I love that you opened up with this idea of being aware of the time and the story around that, which I think is great, but really practical tips. It sounds like your meetings, as we talked about, super complex, a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved. And so those were wonderful tips for keeping it on track. And then one last thought, when you were in the AC on to like 20 degrees. I'm glad that's not what you do, Catherine. I'm really, really glad. That's a relief. She's good to her people. That's awesome. Speaking of being good to their people, so Michael, I love it every time you're on. We talk about all your experience working in the NFL. I'm assuming that they have meetings down on lock. So I cannot wait to hear the tips that you have to help people be efficient in high-powered meetings like that.
Yes, at the NFL, I had a manager one time like to have meetings on Mondays, and as you know, after the games, the bulk of the games were on Saturday, Thursday and Sundays. It was very busy, player injuries and fines and weather issues with games and things. So we had a manager one time that liked to have a meeting on Monday, and it was just kind of a kick the tires of what's going on, how was your weekend, and you're kind of busy. So I kind of never liked to have those type meetings. So I just had like 4 hacks that when I was able to conduct meetings, I kind of wanted to keep things a little bit more purposeful. So first of all, I like to define clear purpose for the meeting, assign a theme maybe for the meeting, and why are we together? Why are we coming together? Who needs to be at the meeting? I mean, sometimes it's very important. Sometimes you don't want to sit in a meeting and people are just sitting there. And you want people to, and also I like to assign a timeline. How long is the meeting going to be? That way people can clear their schedules. They're not going to be there for 2 or 3 hours. So if it's only going to be for 45 minutes, then people they know what they're going to do. The next thing, the number 2 thing, I like to set an agenda. What will be discussed? What are we trying to achieve? Is there any old business that needs to be taken care of? Things of that nature. And who's going to be doing the talking, and for how long is the person going to be talking for? And I like collaboration, and let people know that this is going to be a working meeting. We want everyone involved in the meeting. Allow open engagement and feedback. And I like to set the tone and encourage people to embrace and give people a space to say what they want to say. No one's going to, judge anyone. It's a judge-free zone. And as a leader, I like to discuss to stay on topic. I like to make sure that we stay on topic and not get sidetracked. And at the end, number 4 thing is to end the meeting, wrap up the meeting with final thoughts. I like to ask people if they have any questions, summarize the meeting, agenda points, discuss next steps, and finally, the purpose of the meeting for the next meeting that we're going to have. What are we going to have when, and what are we going to discuss for the next meeting? So that's kind of the way I like to conduct my meetings. Thank you.
I love that. So, Michael, 2 things really struck me that you talked about. First of all, I'm seeing some consistencies already, patterns in the executive, great stuff. But making sure that the right people are in the meeting. How many times, as you pointed out, people are brought into a meeting, they don't need to be there. And that's where meetings get a bad rap. So if you're showing up, you should be there for a reason. You should, like you said, expect for it to be a working meeting, which I thought was huge. The other thing I loved where you talked about telling people how much time they have to talk. Genius. Because you always have those 1 or 2 executives, for example, come in and think that they can just take over the conversation. If you set up in advance, you're going to have 5 minutes. That's all you're getting. Right. And we're going to cut you off. So be concise. It's one of those things everyone's secretly hoping for in the meeting. Right. Here Mary goes. She's going to be on for 20 minutes. So I love the idea of, hey, Mary, you got 5. And I'm cutting you off at 5, like the buzzer's hitting. I thought those 2 things were brilliant. I think we need to do more of that for sure. That must come from that, NFL competitive background, right?
Yes,
like
thank you.
Great stuff.
You don't want to waste anybody's time, because time is, key. It's key thing.
The clock's ticking, but it runs out, right? Totally. I love it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, now switching over to Anna. Anna, you have this incredible background. You've worked for very large companies before. You coach executives. Every executive needs to know how to run a good meeting. It's not necessarily that they do know how to run a good meeting. So I really can't wait to hear what you coach your executives on, because that's their brand. That's their reputation as a leader. So what do you have to add to this conversation? What are you thinking these days?
Absolutely, JT, and I love what Catherine and Michael have brought forward. And there were a bunch of ahas and a bunch of absolutely ditto and new best practices, if you may. As I remember and think about some of the most senior executives I have had an opportunity to work with, and that have really provided me probably things that might have been different than what I've experienced in the past. I remember one time I had the opportunity to interview Jeff Immelt, GE's CEO. And I asked him exactly, about one of the best practices that he had around meetings and how to be most productive and most effective and efficient. Somebody that, at the time was managing one of the largest companies in the world. And I remember him saying, one of the things that I do religiously is every Saturday morning with a cup of coffee, I review what my calendar looked like. He called it an acid test on his calendar, and looked at what specifically and how specifically he had invested his time the week prior. Some of the lessons learned, how could he have done it differently, better, some things that he could improve, and then looked at the following week. So he obviously always had the short, the middle, and the long term, but I absolutely love that practicality of the acid test of his calendar, the week prior and the following week. And these connects very, very, importantly with the amount of time that, research talks about we're spending in meetings these days. So if you think about upper management spends about or invests about 50% of their time in meetings, while middle management goes around 35%, and employees in general have 12 to 15%. So do the math on that, and just think about the financial implications to an organization of how much time, energy, brain power, resources, etc., are being invested in meetings. And at the same time, I think that it is one of those things, JT, that just like you mentioned, that we assume people know how to do and how to run effectively. So, which is not true. And I know I've been in a few of those that, I was ready for the AC being blown very, very high because I was obviously completely distracted or doing something else. One of the things that is critical, and recapping from Michael, definitely having a clear purpose and an agenda, understanding who you're going to invite and what is the purpose for them to come. And even if you can give them a heads up why you're inviting them, I have found that very, very valuable for them as they get to the meeting. Start and end up on time. A little bit of what Catherine was mentioning and how much she was able to capitalize on this and build something extraordinary for one of her clients. Encourage participation from everyone. This is something that you, as the facilitator of the meeting, have to be on top of. You have to be inclusive and just make sure that everybody, if you invited them, it's because you needed them, their perspective, their thoughts, their back, anything or something that they are bringing to the table. And then at the end, of course, summarize what the key points and next steps are. Creating a positive environment, to Catherine's point. And I love starting with music. I wish I could do that more often, and I'm probably gonna take that going forward. You have to be a really good active listener, and last but not least, follow up with next steps. One additional aspect, and Michael alluded to this, and Catherine as well, actually, is the fact that our attention span is very, very short, is actually shorter than that of a goldfish these days. So, and this is not Anna Smith and her research, this is Microsoft research and Gloria Mark's research. Attention span and attention management is really the new currency. And therefore, when you're able to really prepare and plan and do all the great steps to make sure and ensure that the meeting that you're going to conduct or you're going to have and be part of has all these awesome elements, you are guaranteeing success. And then if on top of that you follow up and you have the historics and everything else, you're making it really a productive resource versus a painful, difficult thing to attend to. JT.
JT, I think you're on mute.
Well, thank you for that. It's probably better if I'm on mute after that. Anna, that was fantastic. And, the themes that I see through all of you is planning. Don't just show up to the meeting and wing it. If you want to have a productive meeting, you should plan. I saw a lot of great themes in this, folks. I hope you took notes. If not, guess what? You can come back and watch the recording, which is good. But you really should be planning for your meeting. If you're trying to advance your career, these 3 executives are really showing you today that the way you do that, it's image, it's brand management. You want to walk in like you know what you're doing. You want to be respectful of people's time, and you want to be efficient. And these were amazing tips. So I want to thank all 3 of you for that. Folks, if you've got questions for our executives, feel free to pop it in the chat. But while I'm doing that, I just want to remind you all 3 of these executives are here in creator mode on LinkedIn. What does that mean? Creator mode is a special mode that allows them to share more information out there for you in their areas of expertise. So what you want to do is jot their names down right now, or if you're on there, be a multitasker, go find them and follow them on LinkedIn. Better yet, send them a custom connection request, add a little note and tell them that you saw it on Work It Daily's ETT, Executive Table Talk, ETT. That way they'll know that they should connect with you because they're there to serve. And as you can see, they're very knowledgeable at what they do. So hopefully you'll make sure that you go find and follow all 3 of them. And if you want to make sure that you're always knowing about our latest Executive Table Talks, be sure to head over to Work It Daily. I just love to remind you all of that. Subscribe to our free daily newsletter where you're going to get, it's the only career advice newsletter you're ever going to need. I'm just going to call it. It's that good. I'm telling you right now, I can say that with confidence. But it's also going to be able to remind you when our upcoming shows are so that you can make sure that you can attend. Okay. Awesome. All right. And I just want to say Marilyn's diving in here. Shout out to Marilyn. Based on all your feedback today, coaches, she said, many meetings are a waste of time, although they don't need to be. Marilyn cannot be more right. That is exactly the theme for today. And the fact that we want to be respectful of people's time. and that goes a long way. If you want people to trust you, if you want people to support your efforts, if you want people to go to bat for you in the workplace, these are the kinds of things that define you. Running a productive meeting and being respectful is a big factor for sure. I absolutely love it. So while I'm waiting to see if there's any questions, I want to come back and ask each of you, and I put you on the spot. And what's your biggest pet peeve in a meeting? Like, what will make you remember that meeting as the worst meeting of all time? So everyone take a minute to think about that. While you're thinking about that, Michael's already got his hand raised. That's a good sign. Michael, you go. I'll tell mine after. You go.
For me, it's like bickering. Just bantering back and forth. Just people want to disagree. Stuff that's not productive. Stuff that can wait for to take offline after the meeting. I don't like that. That's one thing I don't like. We're here for a purpose. Let's continue. Let's do what we have to do. But the bickering back and forth is something I just don't care for.
Oh, I completely agree with you. It just makes the whole thing annoying. For me, it's you, and it was something that you mentioned, because it is truly my pet peeve. It's when the leader of the meeting doesn't rein people in. It really bugs me when you're in charge of the meeting and you're letting that person pontificate and go on and on and on. Shut them down. If you don't have the voice, then you shouldn't be leading the meeting, but you're in charge, and it really it makes it look like you're not in charge. You know what I'm saying? So for me, that one drives me nuts. I don't know. Catherine, what about you? Any pet peeves?
To Michael and Anna's point, I feel like I really feel refreshed when there's great leadership and they're aware of the time element. And when they give a little bit of time back, that's like amazing. That means they've been super efficient in the meeting. But to Anna's golden nugget, yes, I agree. Attention span is the new currency. And we have seen that on social media platforms as well as in meetings. And if you can really remember that you've got a lot of eyes on you, we've got to get stuff accomplished, and we need them to pay attention. And that attention span is golden. So I love someone who can really manage that as a leader in a positive way, keep me engaged. They come prepared. Being prepared is so refreshing to me. So, you know what I mean? Like if you get a schedule and you're on a trip or on a tour and I get a really good itinerary, I'm looking for who that tour manager is. I'm like, wow, this is so refreshing to me. It's calming my anxiety. This feels so good to have someone who's organized. Yeah. And so I guess it's not particularly annoying to me. It's refreshing. I'm going to flip it on the reverse and say, I really like it when someone's on time, they're efficient, and they keep that attention span engaged for me. Yeah.
Fair enough. Love it. I love it. That's true. Anna, what about you?
Yeah, I was, certainly all of the above. And for me, it is definitely making people feel that they don't belong. And examples of these could be not even addressing, maybe you are remote or maybe you are in the room. It doesn't really matter, but I never really ask, what do you think? What are your thoughts? You were in that area before. You have lived in that country before, or you have been part of that organization. What are your thoughts? Or you understand the marketplace really well. Or what are your thoughts simply? So making people feel that they belong can really continue to build your leadership brand very, very strongly. I think that people, will go to the bat for you if they know that you are part of their tribe and you're considered part of their tribe. It is just so refreshing, and the contrary makes me a little nervous.
Yeah, the exclusion. I totally get it. Great answers, team. All right, we've got a question. So shout out to Nandifa. She says, how do you get over nerves when presenting at meetings? On a normal, I'm bold, but when all our eyes are on me, I choke up. I love that, right? So a lot of us can be outgoing one-on-one, but when you're suddenly all eyes on you in a presentation, we can really freeze up. Execs, what are your tips for that? Anybody got a tip?
I do.
Absolutely.
Seriously, we should start out with music. You would be shocked at how the vibe changes when you start the meeting out with just some upbeat, cool music or a new artist, and just it just chills everyone out and it makes you feel a little bit more calm. And also to Anna's point, I like the idea that to keep you calm and have you feel confident in presenting, you want to know that tribe is behind you. And if you create that atmosphere where everyone's perspective means something to you, it's kind of calms me down too, knowing that my tribe is behind me. Like I can really like sit in on that versus if I don't feel like those guys are behind me. So those would be some of my tips just for hosting a meeting.
I love it. I love it.
And I'll quickly say, just you have an agenda in front of you. Just stay on point. Stay on your agenda. Just follow your agenda. Just read right from your agenda. So you have some points there. So
Yeah. If you've prepared, that's a great point. Stick to it. Anna, you got any tips?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, and this is absolutely human, right? It's human nature. So this happens to everyone, including the C-level folks. There's always someone that is higher in the hierarchy. So believe me, everybody has this at some point or another or throughout their careers. But I really love the question because that speaks to the fact that you care, number one, and number two, that you're willing to do the work. So my two things would be prepare in terms of know your materials, know what you're going to present, anticipate questions, and all of that good stuff, which I'm sure you already do. And then secondly, something that I particularly have learned in my career is talk to a couple of your peers, maybe run some of the pieces by them where you might be more insecure or have more questions and get the feedback. In that way, you're going to feel that you've already, ironed the road, if you may, or flattened the road for your presentation and the time you're going to be in front of everybody else.
I love it. I love all those. I'm going to give 2 tips of my own. First of all, when you go in, tell them I'm excited to present, and as a result, it's probably making me a little nervous. So with a big smile on your face, because your body can't tell the difference between excitement and nerves. So say that out loud. You want to actually articulate that I am excited to present, and it's actually got me a little nervous with a big smile on your face. Now you've informed the entire room that that's going on, right? So they're going to be more supportive of you. Second thing is always have a meeting buddy. I always had a meeting buddy when I was in corporate America. What that means is if I knew I was presenting, I would go to that person in advance, especially if they were presenting too. I'd say, let's be meeting buddies. Let's have each other's back. So when I look at you, smile at me, right? Remind me to smile and relax. And also, if there's some point in the meeting, you can raise your hand and say something positive or support what I'm talking about to help give the vibe in the room one of support. That would be awesome. And so that's what we would do. We would support each other. It's like, we wouldn't overdo it because then it would have been obvious. But just having that meeting buddy made me more confident because I knew that person was going to have my back and I had theirs. And so that always worked for me. I know that. Great stuff today. Everybody, thank you so much. Executives, you are just the best experts. I love having you on. Folks, please come back. We do executive table talks every single week. They're 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Times on weekdays. Check the calendar. Better yet, go over to workitdaily.com, sign up for the daily newsletter so we can remind you. And most importantly, follow these 3 executives. They are amazing here on LinkedIn. You're going to learn so much about them and let them know that you saw them on ETT, okay? All right. Thank you, everybody. Remember, until next time, if you want to win, you got to work it daily, right? We'll see you soon. Bye, everyone. Bye, experts.